What's up, everyone? Tonight we are wrapping up on HBO's highly emotional and beautifully done miniseries Our Boys, and we're breaking down episodes 9 and 10, so stay right there.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, AfterBuzzers? Trying to pick up my emotions after those final 2 episodes. What a beautiful miniseries. I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad I have you two on my panel. I'm Steph Zabra. I am really excited to break down these 2 episodes. I'm kind of relieved it's done but I'm glad I'm glad I watched it, and I think that they ended it.
But
in
it's
a great
not
way.
done, Steph. It has just begun.
Oh my God! Please.
Honestly, I feel like it's
I
just
haven't even
begun.
introduced him yet. We're beefing in studio. Tehran is to my left. He's our world traveler. He's also our comedic relief for this really, really heavy show.
Thank goodness.
Do you want to speak now, Tehran?
All I'm saying is this is so many things have happened after this.
I know.
It's incredible.
We're just talking about the show, though. I can't get into...
Is the show over? It lives on forever in my heart.
Okay, and to his left is Tatiana Marisa, and she is our history lover, also lover of documentaries, so...
Watch them all the time.
Yeah.
Hours and hours.
Hours and hours.
Especially to this one.
Yeah, 10 hours.
Yeah.
10 plus hours. I want to get into overall thoughts, but before we do that, I want to let you guys know what you're tuning into. We're going to be breaking down both episodes, the trial and what has happened after, which the show did a nice job of letting us know where the real life people are at right now, or what happened following the trial. And then we will get into some news and gossip and wrap up the show from there. But what was your overall thoughts of episodes 9 and 10?
Well, I think it's very interesting that it ended on the eve of Yom Kippur. So, of course, Chag Sameach and Shana Tova to everyone, and may you be sealed in the book of life. It's very strong to end this show at that time during the high holidays, at the most important of all high holidays. It's repentance, the 10 days of repentance. I think it was all planned, I must say. I think that the last 2 episodes were possibly 2 of the most powerful episodes because they had a perfect combination of emotional contraptions followed by an actual meaning. And then, of course, and I hate to say this because the show is so good, the best part of the show was the epilogue, to watch the real deal. And the casting is phenomenal.
It's spot on.
The casting is phenomenal. And that scene where Avishai is testifying was so powerful. If these people don't win something, something, a Nobel Prize, Pulitzer, give them something. A Razzie. Let's give them an award for this has to be noticed. This show has to be noticed.
I didn't realize that you could convey so many different emotions in one sitting. When Avishai looked at Hussein, it was incredible. It was incredible. That was what
Hussein's face during the testimony
was.
You're telling me that guy's not going to win something?
Seriously.
I don't know how any of them are going to get out of character. I feel like they are those characters. It was insane to watch them this entire 10 episodes, but especially these final 2 episodes. Tatiana, what was your opinion on these 2?
I mean, I thought they were the heaviest ones, the heaviest 2. I think I cried throughout all of them.
Me too. I'm still crying.
It was difficult to watch, and it was also difficult to see the reenactment and hear the murder played so many times. So I know we've seen it like throughout the episode, but I feel like it was something like 8 or 9 times they went over it and said the same thing over and over and over. So that was really hard for me. So it was uncomfortable. I feel like it really drilled in how they felt and focused on the emotional aspect as well as the political aspect.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they did a really good job of raising questions that are still present in our society and other societies across time and space, as well as just giving really great performances, ending on a note that I feel as satisfied as I can. Just judging off the show and not the real life events, I am really impressed with how they did it. And seeing all the reviews, I know that this show has caused a lot of controversy, but one thing I think is clear is that it's still like a level of artwork that hasn't been attained, in the fact that we're watching a show in a different language and I feel fully immersed, like I speak both languages and I don't know anything about either language, is just crazy. And it's totally props to the way that they've done the show.
I really like how they take you out of, well, at least for me, I like how they took me out of where I was. You know, because you wake up every morning here, and well, at least me, I'm so used to being in my atmosphere, being, you know, around what I know. And so to watch this show and to be invested in it for so long, it was really enlightening to hear that every day and to see the culture and all of that. It was really, I loved it.
I've been in 3 different countries since I saw you last. Here's the thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. J-Ron is on one tonight, so what do you have to say?
I was watching this episode.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I was watching and I was like, I need a heating pad. That's just so good.
Oh my gosh,
so
that's
strong.
so funny.
So good.
Oh, wow.
It was so good.
Okay, let us dive into to the most polarizing character, I think, that, well, for sure, is Yosef. I haven't really talked about his performance, but when I saw the ending where you see him in real life, I mean,
This is this guy.
Yeah, really.
Like I said, the casting, they how did you find a guy who looks so similar? The mannerisms, the demeanor, the I am Messiah, the I'm Messiah. It's uncanny how strong it is. They did, however, condense that version, by the way. They condensed it, of course, for time allotment, television, just taking liberties. The concept of Yosef Chaim and he appealed and he got sentenced a year later and all these things. They didn't express that very well. They just kind of gave you an understanding of what happened to him so you would be satisfied.
it was really, I mean, there was times where he was playing into his testimony, so to speak, like where he was standing with the trial and wanting to be known as insane and that he didn't know what happened. So he was doing it so well that you were like, maybe he is insane, but then you replay everything and there was just no way. And I'm just curious, what was your guys' emotions towards him throughout the 2 episodes? Did you feel like he was fully in control and kind of playing his dad, his lawyers and everyone? Or do you think that he convinced himself that he indeed was psychotic and didn't know what happened?
I thought it was the lawyers that convinced him to kind of play up to his mental illness, and that he was going along with it until his father came and saw him and lied to him. That was heartbreaking for his father, and heartbreaking to watch. But I think that he was kind of playing into the lawyers, but I do think he had some kind of mental,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely mental issues. Not enough to claim insanity, obviously. I think he was extremely aware of what was going on and aware of what was going on in the trial as well. But he definitely could have taken ownership.
Between him and his dad, Rabbi Ben David, they have the most interesting dynamic and kind of what was representative of like the metaphor that they're playing on religion and the patriarchy of the family and the control of the sons and kind of what happens when you don't follow a certain path and the societal structure and stress that they place on one another. But that was the first time when I was so enraged with the dad for not for a second thinking about the 2 younger kids. Obviously, your son has problems, but he is older, and you saw him take the kids under his wing. They're gonna follow him.
I can't, and I'll tell you why. Because
you weren't annoyed.
That's his father. That's his son.
I'm with him.
And whether you agree with it, there's so many times that we see this trope where the mother stands up for her son, even if he's a serial killer. That's his mother. You always have light in the eyes of your parents. So even at this time, for whatever it is, as hard as he was on his son, to Rabbi Shalom Ben David, that is, Yosef Chaim is simply his son. He will always see him as the little boy he raised.
I don't know.
I agree.
It was the mixture of how he talked to Shimon and was saying that you are doing this against Jews and making it super political. And I understand that was kind of the opinion of of that side, like the right-winged side of what they're portraying in the show. But to me, it just seemed, as a leader in your community and knowing the toxicity of your son, I just wasn't. I was really aggravated watching it unfold. That was just my personal take. But I do understand that it is his kid, but those are two really young, impressionable kids.
I mean, in the end, he was telling him, hey, if you come clean and say that you were in charge of this, then you could save the lives of two kids. So he, I think he listened to, who was it? Avishai's parents, correct? He listened to Avishai's parents and actually wanted to do something to help them. But then he saw his son and he realized his son was a coward.
Obviously, Yosef Chaim wasn't so crazy, because at one point when they're trying to get him to go somewhere and then they're like, okay, well, then you'll get in trouble. All of a sudden he becomes sane, and he gets it. And he's like, okay, I'll come. Like if you're... That's the thing I've always noticed with people in this particular position. It's like, quote unquote, not using the crazy word, but you're crazy until it counts, So it's interesting watching people. Everyone always believes they're the Messiah. No one ever says, oh, I think I'm Dave who works at Rite Aid and lives down the street. I mean, that's also a personality trait that you could take on if you're not. So it's always interesting how some people portray what they think is mental illness. And then there's, of course, real mental illness, which we have seen. And it's people who at sometimes are not invested in their own lives and do not truly understand what's going on. We've seen that also with other forms of mental impairment. But in this case, Yosef Chaim actually seemed cognizant when it came to his own mortality, or it came to his own punishment, or his own portrayal.
I thought that
he was aware.
I thought that was the psychiatrist trying to see. I thought him taking the bait on that was the psychiatrist going to be like, oh, he's actually not crazy. He's in for this for self-interest. And maybe he did, but regardless, he took the stand and went complete opposite.
Because he was in it for the money.
I know. I mean, it's just so...
I mean, it's an opinion. We don't know what his personal opinion was, his professional opinion. Obviously, he gave it. And whether you agree with it or not, the overall stance that is taken is the fact that if an Israeli does something like this, they are crazy. They are mentally ill. Right. No sane Israeli person would do something like this. And we get that in chapter 9, but we especially get that from Yuri Korb in chapter 10 when it comes to, the raising of the homes.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point, because the religion is so intertwined with everything that they do and embody. They really do think that it's not possible for you to believe this and do that.
Well, statistically, they're looking at it also at the cases of how many times has it happened on this side and how many times has it happened on that side. And that's a part of the big problem, is looking at everyone as me versus you instead of us.
100%.
And that's clearly what a lot of the issues in that region currently is. So it's always understanding that if you're pro-Palestinian or pro-Palestine, you're anti-Israel. If you're pro-Israel, means you're anti-Palestine. But that's not the case.
No.
The truth is, you can be pro-Palestine and pro-Israel simultaneously. You can be pro-Palestine and not anti-Israel, and vice versa.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one person, or like the group of people that kind of showed the middle ground, was Segal and her husband, when they were talking to Shimon's brother, and he was basically saying that you guys, what you're doing is against the Jews and all this stuff, and he just said you guys told them it was the classes that they yeshiva or nothing, and you need to take responsibility, and it's the evil thinking. This isn't the religion, it's the evil thinking that you've done with that kind of teaching and upbringing.
I thought it was very brave of him to say that, because she basically lost her job after that.
Yeah.
And they cut her off. So I think it was very brave of him and courageous to say that. And I believe that it was crucial that he did say something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Extremism on anything, on any side, whether it's liberal extremism, is dangerous.
Yeah.
Period.
All of it.
It's not religion. It's one of those things like guns don't kill people, people kill people. Religion truly doesn't. People kill people. People are pieces of shit. People are racist. People are bigoted. People take something that's good. 99% of religion, all religions, are like, love your neighbor, respect everyone. And then there'll be one line like, oh, but maybe punch him in the face. Let's see, punch him in the face. Let's kill him. Let's kill them all. Like, whoa. That's why. How did we throw away everything else that was written?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about what Shimon's testimony in court, because that brings up one of the most extreme things that people can do and are doing all across every country, which is terrorism. And I think this point that was brought up was really, really deep and interesting about the new way of terrorism isn't what we used to believe terrorism is. And I think that is so current on for today's landscape and the way things are going down and the way people are killing, and the type of communication that we're giving, like death to Arabs, death to Jews, like that is terrorism. What did you guys think of his testimony as a whole, how he took the stand against Avishai and that scene in particular?
I think him saying, I was really hooked on when he said terrorism is now defined as someone with mental issues, who's reading Facebook death to Arabs or death to Jews in the morning and kills someone by the evening. Mm-hmm. I think defining terrorism as somebody, first off, who has mental issues, I think is a really slippery slope, because it's. I don't think that terrorism can do. Some people have mental issues, who commit terrorist acts, but a lot of people don't. And so I think it's for him to say that, oh no, it's a new definition now, I feel like is blurring the lines, and it could be a really slippery slope.
But it's interesting because on the flip side, I do agree to give them an easy label. But if you actually look at that label, if your heart is filled with hate and your ideas are so convoluted with hate towards something that's not you, that to me is an illness. Do you deserve any sort of leeway for that? No, absolutely not. But you are not, that's not right to me. You are not right.
I am definitely inclined to agree with you, Steph, for the first time ever.
Wow.
I feel that...
Let me just take off my headphones and leave on ahead.
In the concept that, first of all, I want to say the only time that I've ever been, I don't want to use the term disappointed, but less impressed with the script is specifically Shimon's testimony regarding terrorism. I feel like at that time they were making a powerful statement. Shimon could have said it in a more powerful way. It was a bit sloppy, and I don't know if that's because it's actually what was said in the court transcripts and they were transcribing it, or if it was simply the writers trying to convey something and doing it so it doesn't come off preachy. But that was the time to do so, simply because the definition of terrorism being a mental illness is a slippery slope if you only see mental illness as something that deserves sympathy and empathy in a judicial setting. Any violent criminal without cause is mentally ill.
Yeah.
Meaning, I'm not justifying murder, but if I kill someone because they owe me $20, that's an understandable, yet albeit very illegal crime, but we see cause and effect. But if I'm a mass murder, if I am a mass shooter, if I'm one of these things where there is no direct cause and effect, you cannot predict this type of crime. There is no true motive other than hate, bigotry, things like that. That is a mental illness. You are not in a right state of mind. Does that mean that you should get judicial leeway? Absolutely not. There is no judicial empathy for that. However, are you mentally ill? Yes, because to do this act, just like the act of suicide, just like the act of rape, you are mentally ill, but you do deserve to be punished to the utmost. And one thing that the show did extremely well was make Avishai come off as the most sympathetic person. You actually feel bad that he's being punished the way Yinon and Yosef Chaim are.
I continuously had to check back in with myself and remember the events. And I think they did a great job of, when they were interrogating him in court, to do that. But wow.
Too good a job.
Yeah. The lawyer did it. That's what flipped me around. I was like, oh man, I felt for him. They made him completely, sympathetic, and I was like, oh man. But after the lawyer questioned him, what did you do to stop it? And that's, he was the shark.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. And that's when my mind changed is, give him the same sentence. I guess he's equally as,
I'm not a fan of the same sentence simply because he was 16 at the time of the crime.
And
I'm never a fan of people under the age of 18 being tried as adults simply because as a teenager, as a child, you cannot understand the consequences, the full consequences and repercussions of your actions in totality. You do not have the mental ability to do so.
I don't know if in some circumstances, but I don't know if I agree with that.
Maybe I would say
I think it's circumstantial.
Yeah.
But I also think in terms of would he have done this had it not been for his uncle? No. I don't think he could have thought of this. I don't think he could have executed it. Could Yinon do it? Yeah, I think so. He
as portrayed on the show, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
only on the show.
Yes,
Because I definitely blame the uncle.
Yeah.
The older, the adult.
From the show, Avishai is the only one who showed empathy and true, what seemed to be sincere apology and guilt and shame for his actions, whereas the others blame the system, particularly blame the system, the left-wing liberals, and the Palestinians, who he still refers to as non-human. Avishai is completely different in that sense.
I think he was in denial for the majority of it as well. I still don't know if he yelled, "Don't kill him."
Yeah.
And he's not even sure. And so I think for a lot of it, he was in denial about what actually happened.
Yeah. So on the flip side of the courtroom, we do have the Khedeirs, and I'm just... their portrayal was so heart-wrenching, and at the end they gave the line that kind of summed up everything was when he was saying, Hussein was saying, they got life, but it doesn't do anything to the heinous crime that was enacted.
Sure, but we don't have a way to retribute that either way. So
but
if
that's
they
just
don't,
the truth of it.
So let's say we kill them. By the way, the United States is one of the few first world countries that still has the death penalty, right? So even we see the boys getting life is 21 years, give or take, which is what life is. So when you see a murder committed, and if someone kills that person, that also doesn't bring your
Can I
loved one
ask
back.
you this, Tehran, because this is different than what we do in the United States. When on the flip side, some of the Palestinians who had broken the law, they got their house taken.
Razed.
That was my question too.
Yeah. So do you know anything about that? Is that typical?
So that's actually a very big deal. There's concepts in which the judicial system in Israel is obviously biased towards Israeli citizens. And even then with the Palestinians who are Israeli citizens, it is slightly biased against them, but not as much. They will, of course, go through harassment because of the way they look, the stereotype. However, judicially, for the most part, Israeli citizens, even the Palestinian Israeli citizens, are equal. And this is one of the things that people are so upset about this show. Hey, this show is portraying us horribly. If you don't like the way the truth is portraying you, then you should probably be more worried about the truth than the way you're being portrayed. Okay. In a situation where a terrorist act is committed by a Palestinian, their houses, especially in places like the West Bank in Gaza, their houses get demolished. It is supposed to be a sign to show the other possible terrorist components. This is what happens if you do. Yuri Korb brings up an argument to Muhammad, to Hussein about Muhammad's killers when Hussein brings up, hey, I want their houses demolished. And Yuri Korb is reluctant. He understands why, but he's like, okay, we'll try, but it's kind of blowing it off, right? He's saying, we'll ask, but he knows that's not going to happen. And then he comes out with utmost honesty and says, because It's to deter other people. So when these things happen, Palestinians celebrate it. But when this happened, the Jews actually, they get very mad at the perpetrator. And that's why you were doing this to send a message. We don't need to send that message in Israel to Jews. And there's this saying in Israel in which they say, if the Palestinians put down their weapons, tomorrow there will be peace in Israel. But if the Israelis put down their weapons, tomorrow there will be no Israel. And that's something that a lot of Israelis truly believe, is that the people who are basically inflaming this are the quote unquote other side. And Yuri mentions that.
It's interesting because it's so deep on both sides, and the problem though is when you have like socioeconomic things play into it, and institutions play into people's livelihoods. It's more than just physical violence. There's things that restrict people, and that's across any society. So it is more than just the physicality of it and certain groups doing certain things. So I think that's why the issue is what it is. That's why it seems like an impossible puzzle, because there are so many issues other than just the ground fighting, in my opinion.
There's a lot of issues, and that's the thing, is that this show, as much as people can be upset about what it's portraying, ultimately it showed how the death of 4 innocent children could set a whole country on fire, and that we forget that it's the death of 4 innocent children. Everyone except the families used it for their personal agenda. And when you're doing that, you're part of the problem.
Absolutely.
You're part of it's 4 innocent, I don't care. They were children who lost their lives and their futures. Over what? Over what? Over people being upset about what? What are we really at this point? What are we upset about? This is what's happening. Let's figure it out. Let's make this work. It's possible.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it's so hard for people to only focus on just this story, and not like everything as a whole. And I think that's what the creators were asking people to do, was just to focus on what they were saying, which I think is impossible.
I think it's. I actually disagree with that. I think that more people are researching now than ever. What the creators did was start a conversation, because I have never heard so many people looking into this and looking up facts
in America,
period. People having a conversation. It's very enlightening. This is a slice of a story that's of a much bigger problem that has never been exposed on this form of media, where it is accessible to everyone. I don't care who you are. You can watch this and feel the emotions, and you feel for everyone, and you look at it and go, we are stupid. I'm stupid. If I'm racist, I'm stupid. Why would I hate a black person, or a black person hate a white? Why are we? What is this? What is this really about?
Yeah. I always say that. I mean, racism at its core is the dumbest thing ever, and it's oftentimes used by not actually dumb people, but instead for political gain. And that's, I think, what the show does, is show what people in power can do with ideas running through society. That unfortunately wraps up our coverage of episode 9 and 10, but Tatiana, you did have some news and gossip for us.
Yes, I thought it was particularly interesting that after the time slot, when Americans sat down to watch the concluding episodes of Our Boys, Israeli audiences could see a documentary called Real-Time Kidnapping.
Yes.
It's an hour-long program made by Kashet, which is the same TV channel that co-produced Our Boys. And it recounted the abduction of the 3 Israeli teenagers whose murders in June 2014 led to the equally heinous revenge attack on Palestinian teenager Muhammad Abu Khdeir. So it must be interesting to see that contrast.
The channel was a little pressured because they got in a lot of trouble for co-producing this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is what I was explaining to a lot of people. Just create something that shows that this wasn't about that, but you can. And I don't want to forget the names of the 3 kidnapped children. Naftali Frankel, Gilad Shair, and Eyal Yafra. and their names, unlike Yosef Haim, I won't forget their names because
Yeah.
their names are equally important as well.
Agreed, and equally like innocent and so unfair and disgusting. So I'm glad you brought that up. And at the end of the show, we did get to see where everyone was, and Avishai was sentenced the least in real life. He was 21 years, and the Yinon was sentenced for life. So it is different.
It's 21 years. They
No.
both got life.
It's one said 21 years and one said for life.
Yeah, they were sentenced equally.
You think?
It's not. I'm not.
Did they
giving
say
up
21 years because he's 16?
It's life.
Because I
so-
feel like they would have said both were life, but instead they distinguished years for Avishai, and for Yinon it was life, and for Yosef, it was a life and an additional 20 years.
Yeah, he got the most because life in most places, even in the United States, life. That's why we say 25 to life. That's the concept. So here he gets life as well. So
I'm looking up. It says 21 years and a life sentence
Okay,
in
so
prison.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm interested. I'll look more into that. But I'm glad that they did show us what is happening in real life. And I mean, I think also it was kind of a way to be like, yeah, we did that. Like this casting was unreal.
No. Yeah, it was amazing.
But
I understand what you were saying to that point.
Yeah.
Is the concept of, okay, so Avishai was not found guilty of all the crimes that Yinon was. So his 21 years plus the life sentence is, what you're stating is different than what Avishai was. Yeah, he was found guilty of he got the same time for the 2 crimes that he did commit, but for the other crime he wasn't sentenced.
Okay.
He wasn't convicted of that crime.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, well, we do have to wrap up, but not in the meantime. Now that we're in the off season, tell the viewers where they can find you and what other shows you're doing.
You can find me at Tatiana Marisa on all platforms, and I'm also doing Becoming a God in Central Florida here at AfterBuzz TV.
Find me at I Am Tehran all across the board. And of course, one more time, Gamar Khatima Tova to everybody. I hope you enjoy the new year.
I'm Steph Zabral. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Steph Zabral, also doing SNL. So if you want some comedy in your life after this show, you can find me on the comedy channel AfterBuzz TV. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Much love.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.